Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of Tech Pixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And I'm really excited about this interview, this guest, this wonderful human being. Dana and I have known each other for a while. We were roommates out in, I think, Phoenix, right?
I think so.
Um,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah. And so I've gotten to know her and spend a lot of time with her. And we serve a lot of the same women, women who come from themselves potentially neurodiverse backgrounds, but definitely have children in their families with neurodiverse backgrounds. And, sometimes the house is a little bit chaotic in that environment. So, Dana, you've just written an amazing book that's just been released. And I really want to, number one, just talk to you because you do some really cool stuff. And I think a lot of people in our audience are really going to want to know about you and how you help families. But also, you and I launch a similar way. We use the same system to get our message out into the world. And it's a really important message. So tell everybody about you, what you do, and the book you've just written, because
Yeah.
it's a really great idea and a wonderful gift to the world.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I am Dayna Abraham. I'm the founder of Calm the Chaos Parenting. We help parents create better relationships with their kids by empowering both themselves and their kids. And we do that with courses and memberships, and now a brand new book. And I'm a mom of three. I have a 10, a 16, and an 18-year-old. I've been online for the last 10 years helping parents. But I started just because I felt completely alone. I felt completely like I was the only one that didn't know what I was doing. And so I just kind of started sharing the ups and downs of life and trying to help my son who had really struggled through school. And despite my education background, I still was struggling to raise him. So that's kind of my beginnings and where I'm at now.
So let's start first and foremost. What are your top tips for calming the chaos? 'Cause-
Well, it starts with you. So that's number one, is that it really does take us taking care of our own, having a plan for ourselves, because we're humans as well. So it doesn't mean we're failing if we can't stay calm. It doesn't mean that we are somehow broken if we lose our cool. You're human, and it's okay to have those days or those moments, and then help our kids make sense of it. And so being able to really get clear on your own mindset and your own headspace, that is like the number one important thing, because your perspective is going to make a huge difference. The second thing is knowing that I've already kind of said you're not failing. Well, your kid's not broken either. And so being able to really understand where the behavior or the chaos or the stress is coming from, whether that's from your kids, other people in the family, or yourself, really being able to look under the surface at what's really going on is incredibly important, so that we're not trying to fix things. Instead, we're trying to create solutions that work for everyone.
So pinpointing and it's actually really interesting because I do neuro coaching and we help navigate the subconscious reprogramming. And so I was on a call today coaching, and we were talking about failure and we were talking about rewriting failure. And it was really interesting because I said to the person, let's get to the core of the failure. Like what's the message that, like, what, when you think of the thing that you failed at or how it failed, what's the one liner that really pinpoints the real failure that you feel? And once we had that, it was really much easier to then rewrite the failure and turn it into a learning. Like, okay, well, I actually learned this about myself in in what's a perceived failure. So I think that's a really interesting point, that actually, if there is something going on behaviorally, it's understanding where is it coming from, right? And it is really interesting. I'll share a story. This is actually, I'm not sure if I ever shared this on the podcast, but my when my son was born, he had his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, and I didn't know it immediately. It wasn't something I knew. In fact, I don't even think the doctor told me. And he never quite settled. My daughter, I could put her down and she would just sort of, you know, la la la, look around, and she was happy, quiet. In fact, I took her to the doctor once because she wasn't crying at all. I was like, "What's wrong with this child? She's not crying." And then with my son, it was different because he cried a lot, and I couldn't put him down, and he wouldn't like he needed to be with someone all the time. And anyway, someone recommended that I do craniosacral therapy. I was living in Switzerland at the time, and I thought, sure, I'll try anything, and I got there, and the lady looked at me and she goes, "This has nothing to do with him. It's all you." And so she did this amazing treatment on me, and we and actually he really calmed down after that. But it was understanding that my nervous system, for whatever reason, maybe having two kids that were under the age of 2 and a husband that was gone all the time, my nervous system was a bit shot, and that was translating over. And interestingly enough, when the lady looked at my records, she goes, "Oh, I see your son had his umbilical cord around his neck." And I was like, "What? I didn't know anything about that." So it was really interesting, that whole thing. But recognizing that the more calm I was, the better parenting went. But if if your nervous system's shot, you got to work on that. And I will say, with my daughter, who's now a teenager, I got, I have this joke about Michelle Obama, because you know how Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. In my house, it's when she goes high, I go low.
Yeah.
And I love her to bits. But when she gets upset, her voice goes really high. And that's my signal and my sign to go, okay, let me just calm down and be the steady, calm voice here. And that usually works, and we can kind of get to a place where we can have a conversation. But navigating teenage years, navigating toddler years, navigating the middle years, it can be very chaotic. And then if you do have a neurodiverse child, and I don't know if that's a term they use in the US, but in the UK, it's a term they use a lot here. That can be even more challenging because of all the things that brings with it. What are your top tips for families that are struggling, not just with the regular kind of toddler age, middle age, child to teenage, to, all the different stages they go through naturally? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think so. The first thing is, you've been asking for my top tips, and I kind of go against the grain here just a little bit, because I think in parenting, we've been fed for so long that it is about these tips and tricks and this like one size fits all. And here, if I give you these scripts, then you're going to be able to navigate life easier. And unfortunately, we're not dealing with robots. We're not dealing with cars. We're not dealing with boxes. We're dealing with real humans. And so it's less about tips and tricks, and which is why I've created the book. It's more about guide rails and a roadmap. And so,
Mm.
that one of the things that I identified with my son is it wasn't one thing. It wasn't if I just connected with him more, if I just understood him more. It was a combination of things. And then I needed a way to be able to access those things in the worst situations and build plans that met me where I was at, which is why in the book we've got our framework and our roadmap. So the whatever you're navigating, there are 4 things that you need. And that is, I talked about 2 of them already, but one is connection. And that's actually seeing, hearing, and valuing the person you have in front of you, and not the person you wished you had or you thought you'd have or the expectations you had. And it's not just about the time we spend together, but it's those interactions, like you were just saying, with your body language and how you speak to your daughter and all those in between moments with our children that really play a big role in when we have the blow ups with our children and the stressful moments. It's all those in between things that make the biggest difference. And then the understanding piece is, not just the knowing that there's something under the surface, but a lot of times as parents, we don't do the deep dives unless we've got an extremely challenging kid into neurodiversity or into why the brain does what it does, the brain body connection. We don't do a lot of digging into the sensory processing systems or into triggers or into likes and dislikes. And all of those things are so important. If we really understand why we do what we do, it makes it so much easier to then have compassion and empathy to approach the situation in a calmer way. And then that the third piece is empowerment, and that is skills and problem solving and being able to collaborate together to create plans that work for everyone. And so you need all three of those. And then that last piece we talked about earlier, which is your own perception, your own ability to remain calm. Now, when people hear that, they're like, great, four things I got to do all the time. I got to get them all right. And it's like, no, when you're in the worst situation, you need to be able to pull on those four things in the most simplest form. And so we actually recommend parents having I call it a ride the storm plan, which is like your plan until you have a plan that works. And so, how am I going to ride through this when everything's terrible? And then how am I going to get enough time and energy in my own, like, so that I'm not depleted, so that I can show up in a way that I want to, so that I can handle anything my kids throw at me. And then how can I show up in the heat of the moment, like what you're just saying, of like when she goes high, you start to de-escalate the situation. And then outside of that, it's like, how do I get ahead of it? How do I unravel it? How do we build skills? How do we create systems so this doesn't happen again? And then finally, how do we get the whole family on board? So there's
Mm.
these steps that you have to go through, or stages. And a lot of times people try to jump to, let's create a new rule, let's create a new system, top down approach. And you haven't built a really solid foundation.
Wow. Well, none of us get a manual. we,
Now
we
there is a
we
manual.
get a child and then it's like, here you go.
Yeah.
Like I had Gina Ford's, contented toddler book, and that was about as far as or contented baby, and that was as far as the manuals went. So this is the manual.
This is the manual. Yeah,
And
it is
what
it is a manual for humaning, but specifically humaning with kids.
and you know what I love about this so much is you've got a decade of doing this and systematizing it. You've codified it, you've broken it down, and like you said, it's way deeper than top tips. It's actually creating having a roadmap. And I love what you said, like the guardrails is so good. It's so good, and I expect nothing less of you because you're just an incredible human being. Let's talk about how you even discovered this system. You developed this system, developed this roadmap. How did you get started? Because the other thing I want to talk about, and you work with a lot of women who have chaotic homes that they're now calm homes, and now it's like, okay, what do I do with my life? And a lot of them are becoming entrepreneurs because they're following in your footsteps. So we've got a lot of women in our community as well who are starting businesses. And so I want to I want to go a little bit of a different angle on this.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell your story of actually building your business, because I'm pretty sure a decade ago, you didn't think you'd be doing what you're doing
No,
now.
absolutely not. So a decade ago, I was a classroom teacher. I had been in the classroom for 12 years, and it was my lifelong dream to build a school. And so I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was like, okay, maternity leave's a great time for me to finally do this thing where I'm going to build a school. So that was the most like entrepreneurial thing that I thought I was going to do. And about the same time, while I was pregnant with my daughter, was when my son was really struggling in school, and it just became evident that he couldn't continue in a traditional setting. So I brought him home, quit my job, homeschooled him, and kind of gave up on that dream to start a school. And in the process of looking for information, looking for how to help my son, everything was picture perfect. I mean, this was in the day and age of like Pinterest, and like, if you Googled something, the most beautiful pictures would come up. And it was just,
Authenticity wasn't a thing.
no, no, not at all. And I was like, why does everyone else have their bleep figured out? Why can't I figure this out? And so I'm also a really independent person. And while I had the means to not work, I really felt like I needed to bring something in for and contribute to the house. And I joke that I started my first blog because I wanted to be able to pay for my boxed wine. And I say that because it's silly, but it's also because I really felt like I was buying things for our groceries that were frivolous. Like I didn't need to drink wine, right? I could have given up on my wine. And I was even drinking box wine at that. But my husband's like, we can afford real wine. And I'm like, no, 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 I'm not working. And so I decided that that was like, the line I was drawing. And I had heard that you could make money with a blog. And so I started blogging, sharing the ups and downs, the ins and outs. And I really, back then, gosh, I wish I had found all the business stuff back then because,
I
oh,
don't honestly, Dana, I don't think what we have access to now even existed,
well, I think it did at some point. At some point, I wish I had found it a little earlier. Do you know
Well,
what I mean? Like, because
what can
I
you
was
do?
adamant that I was not going to niche down, right? I was not going to choose what I was writing about. I was going to write about it all, and I wasn't going to be. I remember very vividly thinking, I'm not going to put myself in a box. I'm not just a mom. I'm not just a teacher. I'm not just the mom of a challenging kid. Like, I'm not just about sensory processing. And so I literally wrote about everything from struggles with my kid to homeschool to toilet paper. Like that, I wrote about it all, did it all. So that's how I actually got started very accidentally in online.
So blogging was that thing that you were doing,
Yeah.
and I love that. Okay, so how did you go from blogging? Obviously, now you've written a book, but there's a road between
Yes.
blogging
It's
to
a
writing
long,
this
long 10
book,
years.
which is
Yeah.
already being translated into Dutch. I think you said I
Yes.
saw
Yeah. It's
somewhere.
already been
And
translated
your first
into Dutch.
10,000 copies, they were gone before they even hit bookshelves.
They've already printed 2 extra runs. Yes.
Wow. So, and I also, having spent time with you, and I know, you know, even when it blew up into something way bigger than you ever anticipated. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about that because, you start writing a blog, and then what happened?
Yeah, so I started writing a blog and eventually people wanted what I had, right? They wanted some of the things I was talking about. And so I was sending them to affiliate posts and things like that. And so they were like, no, 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 we want you to create this thing and sell it. And it actually started out as a backpack full of sensory goods. I don't even know if you knew that. So it was the first product that I had.
So,
And
before this, you were signposting people to products that already existed,
yeah,
and then people are like, "No, we want your product," but you didn't
yes.
have a product.
I didn't have a product. So I actually went and had to source all these materials and put them together in a backpack. And then I had to sell the backpack. And, I took all my own photos and it was kind of a hot mess. It was all done out of my basement. I knew nothing about what I was doing. And I was just like navigating it one baby step at a time. And then from there, the things that were really resonating with people were my post about sensory processing or my son's behavior. And so I started talking about sensory processing, and I did this blog series for 7 months. And at the end, I was doing it with a partner, another blog, and we said, what are we going to do with all these blog posts? And we were like, I don't know, I guess we could put it into a book and sell it. And so that was our first online product, like digital product, was we were going to put together these blog posts, make a physical and a digital product. And so we Googled how to launch a book and insert our fair mentor and launch the book. And so that is how I started getting into this, like, oh, there's a system. Oh, there's a way to do this. Okay, let me try it. And so we launched our first book using the strategies inside of that book.
And that was,
Um,
the book you launched, it was a PDF sort of book, or it was a digital book, or was it a
it was both.
printable?
It was both. So it was. I mean, it's not a tiny book. So it's
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay. Oh,
full
wow.
color put together. So
Yeah,
we made it print and digital.
yeah. And then you used the launch system, which we're gonna talk about in a second, product launch formula, to launch that book.
Yes. Very
And
rudimentary because I did it out of a book. So it's not the same as having the full system, but that is the first way I
well,
did
the
it.
first time I used product launch formula, I used the book.
Okay.
So I found the book. Well, so I knew we have a mutual mentor as well. I mean, we follow all the same people and stuff, but and in fact, you did end up getting to build that school one day and I think it was with Stu McLaren, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I did Stu's tribe, which now has been replaced with, it's called the membership experience. And on that program, he said, hey, you really it was a bonus. He's like, you really want to know how to launch something, you got to get the book launch. And so I got the book launch, and actually the first product launch, formula launch that I did was using the book. And it was, it was 4 times the size of the previous launch that I'd done. So it clearly was a good
Yeah.
good system.
Yeah. And so we use that same system over and over again for years to launch all sorts of different things, from some courses and some more digital products. And we had a decent system going on, but our programs, they just would sell, but we didn't necessarily have a community behind it. We didn't see the results of those things.
So you
And
weren't
so
launching your programs. You were launching everything else, but you hadn't launched your
I
program.
was launching programs.
Oh,
Yeah. At the time, I would say that our launches using this formula were getting about $25,000 each time we would do a launch. We were doing it like every quarter.
yeah.
Um,
And
yeah. But
and
that
then
was just off of the book.
that was just off of the book. Yeah, off of the book from Jeff, the book launch. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, and here's the thing that's so cool about, I think, the work that we both do. I know the work that you do changes women's lives. I know it changes children's lives. I know it changes families' lives. And it's that sort of, when you've got a roadmap or a system that can change someone's life, the beauty of a system like Product Launch Formula is that you can get that system out into the world and you can change the world. So, and you might change it for a subset of people, and it might be 1,000 precious people, but it's 1,000 precious people whose lives have been changed. And you've actually impacted more than 1,000 people. You've impacted way more than 1,000 people. So let's talk about what that means to you when someone actually engages with your product and purchases it, and actually what happens in their lives. Do you have some stories for us from
Yeah.
people who've
Yeah.
gone through your system?
Yeah, so my this is my like family wall here. I'm just going to show you messy, but basically this is my office, and this is my family success wall. And so this is not even near all the families, but they're just real people who have been through my program and their life is forever changed. And so, just looking at the wall now, I see a mom who she felt like she was just a roommate, and not even a very good one, with her spouse. And they argued over all the things. They couldn't agree on how to parent their kids. They had they had an older daughter, and then they had twins, and the twins were going into preschool and they were getting in trouble all the time. And they were getting kicked out of preschool. And there was a lot of like school refusal. And so this mom really, had no one. She had no support. She felt like she was failing. She didn't know how to help her kids. And then by applying the framework and our methodology, going through the roadmap, and focusing first on one kid, then another kid, then herself, and then her relationship with her spouse, she then was able to go back through the roadmap again and apply it with her older daughter. And they now have a thriving relationship. The whole family works together and advocates for each other. And the kids are successful in school. And she has a better relationship with her older daughter, and her husband are deeply connected now. And that's just like one example, but I could spout off hundreds and hundreds of examples just like that, where these parents have felt like they couldn't move forward, like they had tried all the things. Like, there was one parent who had a 5-year-old who was getting kicked out of school and was in trouble a lot at school. And so the dad was ready to send him to military academy at 5 years old. And the mom
Wow.
was like, I can't do that. I don't want to be separated from my kid. And so working through the system, working through the program, she was able to help her son. She was able to help her. She had a toddler that she was raising at the time. And now her son's able to advocate for himself. He's, thriving at school. He's doing really well. He never had to be sent off to military academy. And it's things like that kept me going at the beginning. And then what happened is people were coming in when it was last case scenario, and it was like last ditch effort. It was like, well, I have nothing else to lose, so I'll try this. And I was pouring myself into it, saying, I really want this to work for you. I know it's worked for me, and here's the other people it's worked for. But I remember one of these launch events in particular, I was doing a live, and I remember saying to someone, because they were like, oh, my kid's not that bad. And I remember saying, right now, most people come to us when they're at the end of their rope. And I can't wait for a day when people come to this program and it's the first thing they've tried. And they never have to try another thing afterwards, because it would save so much heartache of trying something and then feeling like your kid doesn't fit the mold, or something must be wrong with your kid, or something must be wrong with you, and that's why it's not working. And I didn't want another parent to feel like I felt, or the way my son felt. And I can very happily say that now people do come to our program and they have a toddler, or they have a teenager, or they're raising a 7-year-old, and they just want to be the best parent they can be for their kid. And not only do they handle the stress in their life, they then are able to do things that they never thought possible in their life.
Mm. Yeah, well, and that leads to being inspired by you to then become entrepreneurs themselves. So, and the funny thing is, Tech Pixies as well, my company, um, last year I launched a business program too to help women to go beyond social, because we were a social media training company, and then I got upskilled on the neuro coaching, and that I brought that into the social media training.
Mhm.
But then we went beyond that and we built the business beyond social program. So I sort of followed in your footsteps and was inspired by you, because you were saying, well, here I'm helping parents solve this problem where they're getting their house in order and creating this calm environment, and now the moms are like, okay, now I want
Yeah,
to.
so what had happened is the parents had lost themselves. And so since we've talked last, we've kind of adjusted just a little bit, because in entrepreneurship and building a business, it's very easy to want to go to the next thing and the next thing that people are asking you for. And so what we found is people would get these amazing families, and then they would be like, but I don't even know what to do with my time now. And so they would focus on using the framework to rediscover themselves. And then once they rediscovered who they were like, wow, I want to create an impact in the world, and I want to do this in every aspect of my life. And maybe I could go and do something else. And so they were then living this life by their design instead of by society's rules, or by the constructs of, what the 9 to 5 job that most people think they have to have. And so it wasn't, what we found is, by doing this, it wasn't just entrepreneurs. A lot of them never wanted to be an entrepreneur. They didn't even know that was an option. What they wanted was something that fulfilled them, something that lit them up, something that they could use the same framework that they had learned to calm the chaos in their house and themselves, and now they could use it in the world. And for many of them, that meant going and getting their PhD, or it meant going back to the classroom, or it meant being able to volunteer for programs they never had time to do. Or one mom just started a robotics club at her kid's school, and she did all the funding and she did all of the research for it. And now she's taking this robotics club and she's putting it out there so that the kids can go to competitions. Another one went back to the medical field. She was actually a doctor and she was burnt out, and she was near, like extreme burnout, so near suicidal level type stuff. And by applying the framework to her family and calming the chaos in her family, and then applying the framework to herself and rediscovering herself, she now had time, space, and energy to say, okay, I want to go back into the medical world, but by my rules and
On
by
my
my
terms.
definition.
I think that you just hit exactly the nerve that we deal with in our company, and that's just it. Like I say, we're helping someone return to work, change careers, or start a business, because it's not always about setting up a business. But once you discover who you are, or you rediscover who you are,
Yeah.
which is like you always are that person. It's just sort of sometimes you lose it. There is that thing where it's like, okay, I'm going to go back, but I'm going to go back on my terms, because your confidence level in who you are is so much higher. And actually, that was one of the beautiful things about, getting to know you and see you. I think a lot of people look at entrepreneurs and people who set up businesses and they go, oh, they've got it all together. And like you said, like 10 years ago when everything looked glossy and we had our best, best version of our best selves. And actually, I think, and on an intimate level, I saw you go through this like feeling of who's gonna want to read my book, and who's gonna want, and I'm sitting there going, this book is like so important for the world, and everyone we know is saying that to you. And I think eventually I remember the moment where you're just like, yep, I'm writing this book, and it just, as soon as you decided and you believed that this book was important to write, well, you always knew it was important to write, but that you had the voice to write it.
Mhm.
I think people don't realize we go through that too.
Mm.
Like I just hit my with this. We had our 200th podcast recently. We just hit 100,000 downloads. We've had 13,000 people go through our boot camps, and people look at that and they go, and 20,000, 2,000 people on social media, and your numbers I know are like way bigger than mine, but you just people look at that and they think, oh, they've got it all together. They don't have any confidence issues. And actually, in order to get to the point where you get that book out into the world, in order to get to that point where you put that product out into the world, it requires overcoming fear, living with fear, learning to live with fear, learning to work with fear, learning to have fear, not let fear have you. And it's been so much fun to just, I knew you when you were deciding to write the book all the way to now that it's done and finished and out there in the world and getting an incredible resounding response. So I just want to say, you inspire me massively. And the fact that you've brought this system to the world and it's changing so many lives is also so incredibly inspiring. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're bringing that up because it's, and it's why I kind of went into the messiness of building this because people do think of it as a overnight success or wow, where'd she come from? Or we see people who are our similar age and we're like, oh my gosh, how are they where they are? And even in putting this book out into the world, I mean, yes, I had to decide, but at the same time, at every single step, I've had to battle that internal, the imposter syndrome or the thoughts or the worries or the fears of what if it's not well received? What if nobody likes it? What if nobody buys it? What if nobody comes to my book party? All those things. And so I'm so glad you brought that up because anyone who's watching this, I think sometimes when we are not making progress or when we are not where we want to be, we assume we're doing it wrong and we're not. It's part of the process. It's part of the messy process. And it takes us continuing to go forward and continuing to push through that really uncomfortable feeling and continuing to show up when nobody is there. And you still just
Mm.
do the actions.
Yeah, and I really want you to hear this. Those of you who are watching this, listening to this, I know Dayna. I know how successful she is, and I can tell you she has overcome so much to get there. And she's got staff. This is not a one woman show. You've got a business with staff. You've been able to move into your dream home. There's a lot of things that this business has also been able to provide, not just for you, but for the people who work for you. It's funny when I was booking you in, it was like I had all the people. It was like, and I was like, you've made it when Dayna doesn't even reply in the sense that like, immediately, someone was on it. Yep, we got it. We'll put it on there. And can we get the link? And I was like, okay, this is the new level, because you've got a whole team of people that work
Yeah.
for you that help you run your business. And, so it's really interesting as well, that side of it that you're also a risk taker. Like you haven't just built a business and there's nothing wrong with building a business that is a one woman shop and all that good stuff. But and a lot of us were in that place. A lot of us, I was a one woman shop at one point in my life. I'm definitely not there now. But you've also, with the bigger risks are the bigger rewards. You've got staff, you've got all of that built up over the years, and launching actually has allowed you to have the income to be able to do that. So, I think that's an important message too, that, I think you're also a very inspiring female entrepreneur in the sense that you've built up the team, and you've built up the dream beyond your greatest expectations, and I think that's really cool as well. Now, you did get to build that school, so tell me, and you went back and have built another one, right? Or you're in the
Well,
process.
well, yes and no. So I always had that dream to build a school. It happened when I was 18. I had this vision of being in a school, and it was my school. It was very clearly my school. So I was like, okay, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. And so when I gave up that dream to work with my son and then start this business, people would always say, "Oh, well, you teach online. That's like a school." And inside me, I was like, "No, it's not the
Nope.
same. There's no." Mm-mm. And so many years ago, um, I was given the opportunity to win a contest actually, and get to go along with Stu that first time and see the schools get built. So I didn't donate, I didn't build it. Just I got to be there for it, and I left a piece of my heart in Kenya when I got to go to the village and meet the people and meet the students. And while there, they when they open the schools, the government comes and everything, and the villagers have an opportunity to ask for what they want. And so they asked for an early childhood center, which is my heart. My heart is with like the younger, the better. And so I was like, that's me. I'm going to build the early childhood center. And so I committed then and had no idea how I was going to do it. Called my husband. I was like, so I just committed us to building a school,
Yeah,
and
this is building
yeah,
school is not a cheap enterprise.
no, yeah. So I was like, I don't know how we're doing this, but we're going to do it. All right. So um, what happened is so funny because I was actually at an event for Launch Formula, and we're sitting at a table with two other people that are using the same system. And I'm telling them about the school, and they're like, well, I want to help with that. Well, I want to help with that. And so right there, the school was committed, like our business doing a third, their business, their business. So it was just committed. And so I just got back like 3 weeks ago from Kenya, and I got to see the school built and the 3 classrooms, and I got to meet the kids, and I got to go back to the exact same village. I got to see some of the same kids that were there 5 years ago when I was there. And again, I've committed to building more early childhood centers because I love them. I love what is happening over there. And I love that, what we do can have an impact beyond our own world. And so one of the things I'm doing with the book is for every book that's sold, I'm donating $1 towards those early childhood classrooms so that we can build 3 early childhood classrooms in the next year.
Wow, that is so awesome. Well, here's the deal, because what I always do whenever we have a book, whenever I interview an author of a book, I always purchase a certain number of books, usually around four, and then we give those away to people who, participate in some sort of a task. So here's the task. If you would like to be in to win one of Dayna's books. So I'm going to contribute and get the books, and then we're going to give the books away. Then you want to go to techpixies.com/PLF, which is for Product Launch Formula. So you're going to go to Jeff Walker's page, but I'm an affiliate of Jeff Walker's. So if you go through his launch, which is totally free, by the way, and you decide at the end, actually, I really want to know how to launch a business and I want to know how to do it from Jeff, then we'll give you our bonuses. Tech Pixies has bonuses. The bonus, and Dayna, you can verify that this is a good bonus. So let me tell you what the bonus of
Okay.
Tech Pixies is for Product Launch Formula. So I will do a total pre-launch debrief, like where we go through it before you launch, and then a post-launch debrief. So a pre and post. So it's a one-on-one with me to pre and post mortem your launch, right? What do you think about that? That's a pretty
That's
good
amazing.
bonus.
So helpful, especially from someone who's been there and done it and can see the small nuances. It's so incredibly helpful. I'll tell you, like with what I'm doing right now with the book launch, I mean, I've never launched a book before. And so I'm actually been hopping on for like an hour or two with someone who has done some really, really big launches. And I'm like, okay, so here's what I'm thinking of doing. So I'm still the one creating the plan. I'm still the one doing everything. And she's like, tweak, 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 tweak. And it's just magical. And then afterwards, she's able to go back and we look over what we just did, and then we look at the next piece and what we learned from it. And having that outside perspective is just, it's worth more than whatever you're putting as the value on it, because having that outside perspective is something that we can't get in our own home when we're trying to implement something that we're learning.
Yeah. So all you have to do is go to techpixies.com/PLF, sign up, and then just forward us your link or your email, your confirmation email that says you're in, and then you're in to win one of Dayna's books. And like I said, we're going to give away 4 of those. And, I can't wait to read it myself. I'm in the UK, so like
It
everyone
just
else
came out
got.
today. It just came out today in the UK.
I know, because I couldn't get it until like I couldn't even order it. They're like, you can get it by tomorrow. I was like, great. Like, so I'm so excited that it's now in the UK. And I love that on the UK launch day, you're on a UK podcast.
I know. I love it. It's
And we
exciting.
didn't even plan that. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. Well, listen, you've been very generous with your time. I'm super, super grateful to you. We've got some wonderful live watchers, live listeners. So I just want to acknowledge them because I always love it when people come on and comment on the show. Claire Louise says, wow, what a fantastic podcast. Thank you so much. I needed this. Summer holidays bring plenty of stress in our home, and I'm always looking for ways to alleviate it. I will be following Dayna for sure. Speaking of which, tell people where they can follow you and find you, because we haven't got into that, and I want to make sure people can connect with
So
you.
if people go and purchase the book anywhere, it's available all over the world now. You can go to calmthechaosbook.com and you can submit your receipt. And when you do that, we've got some fun bonuses for you. We also have a Facebook group for you to help you actually implement the book. So be sure to submit your receipt, and you can buy it anywhere. And then if you're just wanting to follow along and make sure that you know where to find me, you can find me at any social channel. So YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and even podcast at Calm the Chaos Parenting.
And Deb Blessing says, love this.
Awesome.
And I know Deb's really going to love this this podcast. So yeah, thank you so much. Those of you who tuned in live. This is not our usual live podcasting time. We're doing it live at 9:30 p.m. UK time. Normally I do it at 9 a.m., but that would be a bit early for you.
It would be. It'd be like 3, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably. So I'm really grateful that you gave us the time. Go and get Dayna's book, right? This is the manual we've all been waiting. Well, literally, we've been waiting like a decade for. So thanks, Dayna, for sorting this out. And also, if you're inspired by her, please go follow her, connect with her, be in her world. I can promise you being in Dayna's world is a very wonderful place to be. And I'm really grateful that I'm in it. And, the way that I connected with Dayna, the way that I met Dayna was by being in the product launch formula world. So if you want to know more about that, go to techpixies.com/PLF. It'll take you to Jeff Walker's launch. You'll sign up through TechPixies. We'll support you through the launch. And of course, if you sign up through us, you get some nice bonuses. So don't forget that. Thanks, Dayna.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Wow, that was so awesome. Oh, wait, hold on. I think I kicked her off. What did you want to say?
I think you're still live.
I am. All right. There we go. All right. So that was awesome. I love it getting to interview my friends, people that I spent time with. Dayna and I shared a room together and had a lot of laughs over a weekend in Arizona in Jeff Walker's mastermind. And we're both big fans of Product Launch Formula. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to promote her and her incredible book, Calm the Chaos, which you definitely should be putting into your Amazon cart right this minute or into your Audible as soon as it comes out. I don't think it's on Audible yet. That's what I was looking for today. But definitely get the book, get the bonuses. And of course, all of the links will be in the show notes as well. And don't forget, if you would like someone to help you launch your business, then you're going to want to check out techpixies.com/PLF. And if you decide to go through the free training and you love it and you want to join and you join via TechPixies, I have a one-on-one bonus for you, which is I will run through your launch with you before you launch, and I will debrief it with you after you launch. This pre and post debrief, it's super critical to get when you're launching a product. I have actually myself with Tech Pixies, our social media management certification, I've launched 38 times. I have been doing it for a long time. I've been doing it since 2015. I've been launching it, and I really accelerated the business when I started using Product Launch Formula. So I've launched social media management certification off of the back of our social media superhero bootcamp 30 times. So I have a lot of experience with this, and I would love to help you. And I also know that it can change lives, not just your life, but more importantly, the lives of the people that you serve. And you can see what happened with Dayna. She had a lived experience of working with a child in her house that was tricky. And she was able to turn that into a way to help others navigate that road. And I'm just so grateful that she spent time with us tonight to talk about it. So wherever you're listening, whatever time you're listening, wherever in the world you are, I am so grateful that you tuned in. Have a wonderful day, rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Make sure you've got our podcast in your podcast favorites. If you haven't yet, please leave a review. I love the reviews. I read them all. And you can get our free podcast guide if you're thinking about maybe launching a podcast yourself at techpixies.com/podcast. And you'll see all of the other podcasts that we have available for you to listen to and to watch. Have a great evening, those of you who are listening live, and speak soon.